Have you ever wanted something so bad? I mean, whether it's succeeding or whatever the case may be, in this new climate, they call it thirst. But back in the day, we used to say, I'm hungry or I'm fiending for that thing. We're going to talk about that right now. You have reached the I'm Dealing With broadcast. I'm Shon, your host. Today, we're going to talk about being hungry. We're going to get right into it. Let's go. Yes. Bass drop. Welcome to the I'm Dealing With broadcast. I'm Shon, your host. Today, we're going to be talking about being hungry. Being hungry, not just fiending. Not, hey, I'm thirsty. Not a thirst trap, but being hungry. And one of those things, as far as being hungry, is part of your progression. Some of the things and parts of, maybe you want to succeed in life, build your business, be better than what you are, and or as they coin the term, leveling up from where you are to where you want to be. And sometimes, in our fiending, in our thirst traps, if you want to call it that, in our hunger, sometimes we fiend for stuff. We're not talking about females and all that kind of stuff, because you see that stuff in your Instagram, you see it in your Twitter feed, you see them, sometimes guys are DMing these ladies and stuff like that because it's the outward appearance that appeals to them, what they have on, what they look like, their shapely figure and things. But that is not what we're talking about. We're talking about, as a man, sometimes we, don't like to settle, don't like to be complacent, don't like to just stand still, don't like to be stagnant. And we're always trying to find that next thing, that next product, that next item, that next piece of electronics, whether it's for your car, whether it's for your truck, your motorcycle, maybe for your home audio, maybe that next book, maybe that next device, maybe that next meeting, maybe that next course that takes you from where you are to the next level. And for me, people say, well, you're always changing stuff all the time. I hate being stagnant. I hate being in the same place. I like to move and do some different things. And I'm always trying to find that once I get to a certain point, I'm like, there's got to be another step from here. There's got to be another step, another point. There's got to be another place where you level up your audio, level up your video, maybe level up your writing essays. For those of you that are lawyers, maybe leveling up in your arguments, in your discussions, maybe in your research. Those of you who are doctors, leveling up your expertise, your technique. And technique is one of those things that happens in a lot of different segments across the board. There are those of you that are in the fitness and you're looking for that next level of leveling up, that next process, that next new training, something, whatever that is, that next new product, that new vitamin, that new antibiotic, whatever that is. We're always looking for that next thing. And sometimes we have to be honest and say, so many of us men, we like stuff fast. And what I mean by that is, I'm like a little kid. If I give you my money now, I want to play now. Meaning if I want that item, if I'm purchasing it, I hate to wait. I hate to wait for it. For those of you that are golfing, I know exactly how you feel. You're looking for that new club, that new bag, that new shirt, that new pair of shoes, so that way when you get out to the course, it helps you level up your game or levels up your appearance, where you actually now fit what you're trying to fit into. There's a club, there's a group, and you at least want to look the part. I get it. And sometimes especially when you're doing with golfing, sometimes your game is not always what it should be. Sometimes you need those new clubs. Sometimes it's not the club at all. It's just the technique. But then sometimes you think you would play better if you look better. So again, there's always ways of leveling up, no matter what your thing is in life. If you're into cars, you're thinking about the group that you hang out with, maybe the car shows. Matter of fact, I was just driving out here last night trying to get back home, and the freeway was just jam packed. And I end up in some place, and I realized here's a huge drifting competition. I mean, it was packed, and I'm driving by, and I'm like, "Whoa!" Almost wrecked the car. Almost hit another car trying to look at it, but neither here nor there. But the point of it is even in that world, whether you're interested in the competition or you want to be a part of that competition, there are some things that you just need to have. You need to have the right type of engine, the right type of power, the right type of power to weight ratio, the right gearing, the right horsepower, the right torque, the right type of suspension. There's always different things that you will find sometimes to level up, to either feel like you're a part of that group or to be in contention with that group, to feel as though you're even a competitor or you feel worthy even to be there. Because there's one thing to be fast, and there's another thing to where your car looks great, but it's slow as dirt, right? So it's always that thing, that dichotomy to where you're trying to figure out, say, hey, I want to level up what it is that I do. I want to be better at what I do, but at the same time as wanting the results, I also want to look the part too. So I've had a couple of people even ask me, starting this podcast, this I'm dealing with, what it's about. Yes, yeah, we're talking about men, but there's even women, a lot of women that actually listen to this podcast because they love you men. They love you guys. They care about you. They care about what you think. They care about your problems. And they're listening because they want to hear what a man's perspective is on the way or on the way men feel. Because in order to understand a man, you have to be a man, or listen to a man's heart, to where he's honest, or can be in a place where he feels like he is trustworthy, where he can feel like he's being trusted, I should say, to be able to share his heart without condemnation, without things being bogged down on his head. So, and in that, men will like to change some different things in their life. So they ask, hey, so what is it that you do? And I tell them the goal is to build men, no matter where you are, regardless of race, color, creed, identity. It's about meeting you where you are. And women that are listening to this podcast, they can identify because they have a man in their life. It could be their brother, their boyfriend, their husband, their father. So, and in that regard, they've got to be able to understand, kind of how they feel. But even outside of that, some of the things that we men go through, even women go through. But I know I cater it to men, right? So in this real quick, I'm going to talk about what I did, how I started. And many people think that to start something that you have to do this big grandizement. You have to have all these pieces of electronics. You have to have all this gear. You have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, to get into it. Honestly, that's not the case. Okay, so we're going to talk about that right now. So to be honest with you, how I started with this kit right here. It's by a company called Power DYs. I started with this kit. And what this is a lav mic. I won't pull it all the way out, but I'll pull some of it out. This is a lav mic. So here is one of the cables. This is one of the extension cables that comes with this kit. And that plugs into your smartphone. However, it can also be plugged into your mirrorless camera, which is what I'm using now. I'm using my DSLR. You can plug into your DSLR camera and or your smartphone or tablet. And this is what I used. And included with this is the main portion of the capsule, which is your mic itself. So as you can see the mic there. Let me bring it down. You can see the mic there. And then, of course, here's the main connection here. All right. So here's the main connection here. So this is probably about, I would say, 8 or 9 feet long in itself. And then you can connect it to this, which gives you about another 15 feet or so on top of that. And also in this kit is the clip to clip it to your shirt, maybe inside your clothes or whatever. And then there's also a piece here. There's also another connector where you'll plug your the 3.5 millimeter jack into this base under here, and then this will plug into your camera. You basically your DSLR or mirrorless camera. So the way it comes right out the bat, it's made automatically for your smartphone. It has the TRRS plug here. So you have the 3 rings, and that's what it's made for. So what I did was I used that, plugged it into my smartphone, which is this buddy here. Plug that into there, and I used the recording software. And that's how I started my podcast for, I think it was like the first, I want to say 5-6 episodes. That's how I recorded. And how I did it in a quiet environment. Don't judge me on this, but this is how I started. Because believe it or not, there are many people that started off this way. And where I did it was in my garage in the backseat of my SUV. Yeah, that's how I started. My first 5 episodes, I believe between either 5 to 9, something like that, were done using my smartphone and this mic right here. So that was the first few. From there, I really wanted to be somewhere kind of dedicated. So I decided to buy a kit. And if you want to call it leveling up, it was kind of going across the board. It does give you a level up feature a little bit more because I really want to do more video, which I never ended up doing until later. Is I ended up buying a kit, and these are the newer 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 NW800 microphones. So these are condenser mics. They look like this. These are condensers. And to be honest with you, I loved the sound of these. The problem with condensers is if you're not in a controlled or treated room, they pick up everything. Believe it or not, if I were to plug this in right now and turn the gain up a little bit, I could pretty much listen to anything in the house. I mean, that's just what it is, okay? And when you use this, you can't just plug those into your smartphone anymore. It just so happened that I had a mixer with a Yamaha MG10 2 that I've had probably about maybe 10, 15 years. I've had it for a long time, and it was only used twice, and it was in a box. And I decided to unpack it and plug it in and start using it. And because these require phantom power, which is basically 48 volts, I had to have a device that would run phantom power. And that was that. So right after that, I've got tired of the echo. The beauty is, even though these are very sensitive, it's not, how should you say, really high end, but they're great in that, depending upon what you're trying to accomplish, and you need to not spend a whole lot of money, these are great to start off with. They actually come with their own shock mount. Believe it or not, every white arm you see here on my desk in the studio here, these are all a part of this package. So each one of these mics came with a boom arm and also a shock mount. And believe it or not, each kit was like $33. So you got a mic and this and a shock mount, $33. I couldn't beat it, so I did it. So I got 4 of those. And with that, I found a deal later on. It was a AKG P420 condenser microphone, and I started using that in the office, and I was using that for a while too. After that, I decided that I wanted a mobile rig to be able to go mobile, house to house, that type of deal, and with different people and different interviewees. So I then picked up and decided to go dynamic So I left condenser and decided to go dynamic. And I picked up these. And these are AKG. I know I'm a big AKG fan. I've known and used AKG for many years. I know a lot of people love Shure, the SM58s, SM57s, and all that kind of stuff. And of course, a lot of podcasters use the SM7B, which is great. But I've always been one of those people that like to swim, upstream instead of downstream with everybody else. I always like to do something a little bit different. So to me, I always like hot mics that actually stand out a little bit more and cut through the crowd, because my background is front of house, especially like houses of worship, live, running mixer that way, and being an engineer doing that kind of stuff. So I loved these mics. So these are, you don't find them too much anymore. They're hard to find, but they're very cheap and very inexpensive. These are the AKG D8000Ms. Again, the D8000Ms. Turn the logo around so you can see it. Okay, so that's that, D8000Ms. So these are very hot. I mean, very hot. They do not require a lot of gain at all in order to sound good. They sound great. So again, I use these with, I have a Zoom H6 recorder, so I bought that as well later on when I decided to level up. And that allows 4 XLR microphones right off the bat. There is another capsule that you can add to it. It's an adapter that allows 2 more XLRs. So hence you can get a total of 6 XLR feeds right into that H6 Zoom recorder. And I love that because you can record on the fly. And so I decided to also order and get stands, so mic stands. So for instance, let's just say you, Bob, that are watching, let's say I'm coming to meet you and I have a friend with me and we're all going to meet, somewhere at the house, at the park, whatever that is. We can then have from one person to all the way up to 6 people on a podcast record in the park or anywhere, because that H6, that Zoom H6 runs off of batteries. But it can also be plugged in, and it can also run off of, I don't know where it's at. I don't think I brought it. It can also be run off of my battery bank as well. So as long as the battery bank is charged, and I have both of my battery banks are like 30,000 milliamps. So it's very rare that I usually charge them maybe once every 2 to 3 weeks. I mean, that's how long they last for me because of the way I use them. So yeah, so that's pretty much how I started. I started with the Lav, went to the newer NW800s, and then I went to the Dynamics. So the Dynamics were, again, like I said, were basically more so for portability. But then, of course, COVID kicked in, right? So who's really going anywhere? So I decided to take these down, and I went and used these in my studio, because what that allowed me to do was have a more directional sound because of the cardioid polar pattern. Whereas these are more sensitive, even though those are cardioid as well, but they're very sensitive. AKGs are more focused, which means they don't pick up a whole lot of sound from different areas. But what I like about these are super cardioid. So I mean, they're real, they really kick. And then it got to a point to where, again, going back to, I like changing stuff around, right? So I'm changing, my hat's hitting the thing. I'm changing. And then I decided to take these back down, and I went back to these, believe it or not, the newer NW800s. And people are like, well, why? I mean, why would you do that? Because what I wanted to do is, because the mixer I was running, the Yamaha, and then later on I ended up getting a bigger Yamaha, 16-channel Yamaha. No, I know, I didn't need it. I didn't need it, but I wanted it because it was so beautiful looking. But I ended up getting a 16-channel Yamaha, and because it was big and bad, I took the foams off of this, and then I decided to go with a different windscreen. which is this. So what this allows you to do is I'm just gonna put the mic behind it, so it allows it to look like that. So these mics are called site address mics, meaning you don't talk to them like this. You talk to it and you speak to it like this. Okay, so you speak to it like this. So when you turn that like that around, this windscreen sits in front of here. And I mean, when it sat in front of there, I mean, the pops and all that kind of stuff were gone. I mean, it just sounded so good. And I was really able to EQ these mics. And I mean, as long as there was no any other sound around in the room or in the outskirts of the area, they sounded so good. So, yeah, so I went back. Jeez, I shouldn't wear this hat, right? Yeah, stupid. My bad. So, but I really wanted to experiment. So, again, I like to experiment. I don't like being stagnant. So that's what I did. And then until I was gifted from the Zoom H6, which I still have. I use that. It's in the box, portability purposes. But I was using my Yamaha, and then kind of using the H6 just for the recording portion of it. But I was ended up getting gifted with this right here. This is the Zoom L8 Live Track recorder. And I love this thing. It allows all kinds of functions at the push of a button. It has mix minus functions already built in for cell phone calls. It allows me up to 6 mics already put in here, in XLR mics or TRS microphones or any other type of input. Like right now, this, as you might can't see it right now, but this cable right here goes to these over here. This runs off a stereo channel here. Okay. And it plugs into here. So if I actually want to play music or play anything right from my tablet, I can. This other connection off to the side here actually plugs into my phone to be able to receive phone calls. There's just so much that I can do with this. It has a recorder already built in. So right now, the audio that you're hearing, you're either hearing it going right to the camera, which it is because it's recording there, but it's also recording on a micro SD card inside the Zoom. And then I have a total of 4 more outputs of a 1/4 inch that can be used for headphones, other things, other monitors, different type of mixes, all kind of crazy stuff, all built into this. And yes, this was gifted to me from a supporter who really saw the vision of this platform. And I'm very grateful, but which is amazing because I'm a tech guy, right? So after I got this and put it in place, been working with it and figured it out and enjoying it, this same company releases a new one called the P8. It's like, oh God, I just hate you guys. But again, I'm always, trying to level up, just go to that, how can I improve my mix time? How can I improve my back end time? How can I improve the audio quality and things of that sort? So, and I haven't even used this to its fullest extent because it can be used for podcasting. It can be used for DJing. It can be used for a small band. There's all kinds of things that this right here can be used for. And the other thing is because it's the way it is. It runs off of batteries, just like the H6. It runs off of AA's. It can also run off of being plugged in. And believe it or not, it can also be run off of a power bank. So I can be at the park with this too. So very portable. But for me, because I have so much stuff plugged into it, I probably won't be taking this anywhere unless I'm moving to a different location. But this won't be like my mobile rig. This is for the studio, and then I'll use my H6 for my my mobile rig. So that's where I'm at. However, but then after I got that, I had already was using these, the NWs, and I was like, you know what? It would be nice to have a more directional, focused sound again. But I wanted the sound of this in a smaller platform. Okay, so you don't have, usually your plug will stick way out here. Okay, so from that, I decided to level up. Let me make sure this thing's not going to roll off. I decided to level up. Now I went with another AKG microphone like this. That's what it looks like. Matter of fact, this is the one I'm speaking to right now. And believe it or not, this has pretty much the same frequency as this microphone here. I mean, there's not much in the way of frequency changes at all. This one, yes, it drops down to roughly, I believe it's, both of these are like 40 hertz, which is fine, especially because we're not going to be singing in these things. But then they also have, this one jumps up to, I think it's either 19 or 20 kilohertz. This one stops at 18. So it's a very narrow focus, but believe it or not, this is called the AKG P4, the AKG P4. And if you have not heard of this mic, believe it or not, you probably have and don't know it. But believe it or not, this is actually a drum mic. These are actually made for toms and snare. So they're musician mics for drums. But because I hadn't seen too many reviews on somebody using this for vocals, I decided to say, hey, let me check this out. So because I read that the frequency range was pretty much on par with very limited differences between this one and the one I'm talking to now. Yep. I decided to go ahead and check it out. So, and of course, I'll say, well, I'm not going to order one and check it out. I might as well order what I need. So I ordered all of them that I need to really fill up, the booth here. And I actually like them. I like AKG products. I always have. One thing I do understand, of course, there's a difference between, and I'm learning to get better at it. There is a big difference between podcasting for yourself, maybe with a few guests, and live sound where you're in a band, you're playing before a crowd, or maybe in a church, house of worship. It's a big difference. So your mic standards are a little bit different in your frequency range and how they respond to what it is that you need. Mic technique is even more paramount because, normally when you're a singer, especially if you're in that SM, 58, you're going to town just like you would with this, but again, you're singing. Whereas when you're talking, a lot of your plosives and things like that are not very pleasant, especially on the ears for those that are listening via in their car, on their tablet, maybe at home on their stereo system. So you have to be very mindful of the technique and things that you use. And as well as after all the recording is all over with, then you have to deal with the audio processing behind it. Because, some people just take the raw file and just go, whoop, I'm just going to upload it and that's it. But there's a lot of editing, sometimes getting rid of the ums and that and whatever, or the gaps between one thought and the next thought. Maybe a lot of, you have to get rid of that too sometimes. It's just one of those things. So, but that's how I started. And this is what I'm doing now. I'm using this mic, the P4, and I'm using my Zoom. What else do I have? Back here. So this red cord, you see this red cord, it actually goes down to a headphone amplifier, which is in front of me here. You can't see it, but it has 4 outputs on it. It's by Behringer. Great headphone amplifier. And they're hard to find now. It's amazing. All of a sudden this quarantine thing kicked in and stuff was sold out. But yeah, it has 4 outputs, which allows me to have 4. Actually, I have 1. So I'm on number 1. This one's number 2, 3 over here, and then headphone 4 over here. And all of it can be controlled where I'm at. Each one has its own volume control. So that's what I use there as far as the audio, nothing else. XLRs, there's nothing underneath, no secrets there. But next thing is off of my main, I have two, a left and a right, that you would use like for, maybe going into another mixer, or you're going into some monitors, which I don't have because I'm not using monitors. Basically, everything's headphones. So I have an XLR that's going down through my cabinet here, through the desk. And off of that, it mixes up to another XLR that then in turn turns into a 3.5 millimeter that's going right to the camera. So the camera gets this audio and records the video, whereas this gets the audio only. And then from there, I have a clean HDMI feed off of my camera here that goes out to a screen, large TV basically, on the wall behind the camera that I look at to make sure, hopefully we're looking kind of decent. Lighting here, lighting over here. There's 3 lights behind me, and usually you can always see this, where that one right there. That's usually the one you normally see. But then there's another one right here, and then there's another one further over. And then back here, there's a light right here. So that's where your blue is coming from on that. And then there's another one right behind me. You can see my hand back here. Yeah, it's back here. And then this right here are the walls that just kind of separate me from all the garbage behind it. So, and this is always set up, doesn't change. Sometimes I actually move it, but now I'm in the permanent location where I'm just going to leave it until it's time to go to the next official, whatever location that will be. But yeah, this is pretty much how I'm dealing with this, doing it, trying to, record, give you good content, and just let you know that at the end of the day, being hungry, you have to want it for yourself. It doesn't matter if you're some type of content creator, you're trying to build something, you're trying to build the next business, you're trying to sell that next product. You have to be hungry. You have to find ways to level up. You have to find ways to do something better, not necessarily better than the next guy, but never just settle. There's nothing wrong with this is where you start, but understand that just because you started there doesn't mean you have to end there. Just because you're starting on a slow track doesn't mean you have to end up there. Just because, you're not getting a whole lot of supporters now doesn't mean you have to end there. You can go further, farther, and faster if you just try. I trust and pray that no matter what you do in life, that you don't stay stagnant, that you go, further than your forefathers. Stand on their shoulders, see further, never settle. I'm Shon, your host. Thank you for listening and watching the I'm Dealing With broadcast. Stay tuned for our next episode, and as always, be blessed.